With the release of Absolute Superman number 12, we are officially a full year into the Absolute Universe. If you've somehow managed to miss the event of the year, the Absolute Universe is a new DC Comics imprint based in a world crafted by Darkseid, one where hope is the underdog and injustice is the rule of nature. We'll look at each series in the Absolute Universe and see what Darkseid has cooked up. Make sure to like and subscribe, really helps me in the algorithm. In this universe, brutality and despair reign. Nowhere is this grim, uncompromising tone more striking than in Absolute Batman. Absolute Batman reimagines Bruce Wayne and his supporting cast in surprising ways. Instead of a wealthy child whose parents were tragically shot in a mugging gone wrong, this Bruce's life changes during a field trip to a zoo. A mad gunman attacks the crowd, and Bruce's father dies protecting him, locking Bruce in the Bat House for safety, ultimately setting him down the path of the Caped Crusader. In this alternate reality, Bruce never inherits vast wealth or resources. Instead, he grows up honing his ingenuity and intellect to craft gadgets from the ground up. His utility belt and custom bat suit employ innovative makeshift designs. Notably, the wings on his suit are retractable mechanical arms that function as tools, bridges, and even stilts. The bat symbol on his chest isn't just a symbol, it doubles as the head of an axe, one he isn't afraid to use to maim his foes. It also helps that the man is nearly 7 feet tall. He's huge. These changes highlight Batman's legendary reputation as an ultimate warrior and survivor in ways the main universe often struggled with. Absolute Batman portrays Bruce as a man who, even without allies or resources, can rely solely on his willpower, ingenuity, and strength to fight crime. While mostly alone in his fight against crime, Bruce does have a close-knit group of childhood friends. One made of alternate versions of Gotham's rogues gallery: Ed Enigma, Harvey Dent, Ozzy Cobblepot, Waylon Jones, and a noticeably absent Selina Kyle. The darkness of this world is exemplified in Bruce's first major foe, Black Mask. Here, Black Mask is a gangster employing subordinates armed with high-tech helmets, which enhance their strength and provide tactical field data. He uses his wealth to turn Gotham into a bounty hunting game where death is profit. Bruce defeats Black Mask in a climactic battle. Gotham's salvation remains out of reach. Black Mask is just a pawn in a massive criminal enterprise, driven by corporate and political ties. So before this series even came out, one of my shorts went viral where I claimed Absolute Batman would be a satire, something tongue-in-cheek in the vein of Judge Dredd. And once I read the first few issues, I saw a lot of comedic moments. Bruce's friends often lean into their comic personas. Harvey Dent continuously mentions the number 2, Waylon carries an actual crocodile, and Oswald's constant wanking. Batman punts an evil child into the ocean. There were times I genuinely laughed reading Absolute Batman, but any semblance of humor quickly fades as the story plunges into darker territory. The second act introduces an even greater threat. Absolute Bane, a monstrous man who makes the original Bane look tame. He kidnaps Waylon Jones and takes him to Arkham, this universe's Arkham Asylum, revealed to be a nightmarish experimental lab, a warped horrorscape with different rooms reflecting horrendous experiments. The Clayface Room, where the floor itself is a sentient substance. The Langstrom Room, where people have been mutated into suffering chimeras. The Isley Room, a living forest made of humans twisted into plants. It's giving Dante's Inferno, with each layer of Arkham serving its own cruel and unusual damnation. At Arkham, Bruce encounters Absolute Bane repeatedly, each encounter pushing him closer to death. Broken, reassembled, and sent back out to fight, Bruce endures weeks of relentless punishment but keeps pushing forward. When Batman finally finds Waylon, it's too late. Jones has transformed into a monstrous crocodile monster, begging for death. Now, we've seen Batman face brutal, insurmountable foes before. We've even seen his friends suffer before. But the Absolute Universe takes us to another level. A massive gut punch comes when we find out what Bane does to the rest of Bruce's friends. Bane displays his sadistic drive to not just defeat his enemies, but utterly break them. Ozzy, obsessed with strength and stature, Bane renders him physically deformed, 2 feet shorter and permanently disabled. Harvey, his dual nature exploited. His skull is split and burnt, leaving him half the man he once was and giving him a hatred for Bruce. Eddie, known for his intelligence, his head is smashed against the concrete, bouncing his brain against his skull over and over, damaging the intelligence center of the brain, leaving him delirious and unable to separate questions from answers, and strangely thankful to Bane for the enlightenment. These moments are visceral, disturbing, and hard to stomach. They underscore the pervasiveness of suffering in this world, especially at the hands of Absolute Bane, whose backstory is equally tragic. In the main DC universe, Bane is the son of a revolutionary. As punishment for his crimes, he shares the sins of his father, thrown into the prison of Santa Prisca, forced to survive floodwaters and rats, till eventually he becomes the man we know today. In the Absolute universe, Bane is also the son of a revolutionary, but he fights alongside his father for peace and justice under the symbol of the Quetzal, a banner of hope. But after endless struggle and grief against overwhelming forces, Bane accepts an offer from the Absolute Joker, the man who funded his enemy. He sacrifices his ideals, his morals, his father, and himself. The once noble bird spirit he fought under now adorns his mask as a skull, a symbol of death and despair. Despite Bane's overwhelming might, there is a glimmer of hope for Batman. Beneath Bane's monstrous brutality lies his own brokenness, and this weakness may be Bruce's key to defeating him. The darkness of the Absolute Universe extends beyond Gotham. Diana of Themyscira is now Diana of Hell, abandoned there as a baby and cared for by the wicked sorceress Circe. Yet even in this bleak upbringing, Wonder Woman's core shines through. Her compassion and love for all living beings. Her empathy transforms Circe into a motherly figure. Diana's compassion leads her to befriend the demonic creatures of hell, becoming a sort of Christopher Robin in a twisted 100-acre wood. As we see multiple stages in Diana's life, we see her balance this compassion with the ferocity of a warrior, armed with sorcery, a skeletal Pegasus, and a huge blade clearly inspired by Guts' Dragon Slayer from Berserk. She battles mythological beasts to save a city in the human world. She makes friends with Steve Trevor, Etta Candy, and Barbara Minerva. Just recently, she navigated a labyrinth to free friends and her fellow Amazonian sisters from a cruel Atlantean despot. And now, Diana's mother knows that she still lives. Hope survives. Absolute Wonder Woman is a testament to the character's kindness and strength, making her a bright star in the otherwise grim Absolute Universe. It really gives Wonder Woman a niche among the Trinity. We start to see the connective tissues building between these stories, mainly with the Lazarus Corporation run by the ruthless Ra's al Ghul. We see the horrific plans Ra's has for humanity and planets beyond in Absolute Superman. Kal-El's story is no less disastrous. Raised on Krypton, he grows up in a hyper-industrialized fascist society devoid of individuality. Workers and rulers are separated into rigid castes. Creativity is suppressed. Free will is practically non-existent. Students are discouraged from writing their own essays, only pulling from Krypton's archive like copy-pasting Wikipedia. Thought is not needed. Knowledge has been automated. Automation and its dehumanizing effects on society is a theme of Absolute Superman, fitting for a time where technocrats and oligarchs are desperate to cull their workforce in favor of cheap artificial labor. The Lazarus Corporation seeks to replicate this oppressive model on Earth, ensuring its grip extends across the universe. This is accomplished through Absolute Brainiac. We know Brainiac as the Collector of Worlds, a cold genius and invader. This Brainiac is an unstable mad scientist with a god complex and an army of Brainiac clones he freely abuses and mutilates. A cruel master replicating the system that broke him. Absolute Brainiac was designated the absolute lowest rank of any Brainiac on the ship. His purpose was to shovel trash. That trash being the discarded remains of other Brainiacs. Seeing the endless scores of Brainiacs scrapped to serve this malicious hive mind broke his sanity. Until one day, the trash stops. Brainiac enters the deck of his ship to find all other Brainiacs dead, and so the lowest Brainiac becomes Brainiac. Superman struggles against these foes while struggling with the loss of his parents and planet. He also met the Kents, but his interactions with them led to Pa Kent dying and Ma Kent ended up hospitalized. Now, he walks alone, with only his AI cape named Soul as a companion. He spends time wandering through Brazil, helping mine workers in the employ of Lazarus, doing an entire day's work in mere minutes. In truth, they're more like slaves or indentured servants. They cannot leave, they must meet their quotas, their compensation is minimal, and they are at all times threatened and harassed by the peacemakers. Let's call them Lazarus's HR department. This all puts Cal in Lazarus's sight. Ra's al Ghul wants to turn him into the perfect son through Brainiac's brainwashing, but Superman overcomes. Now, Lazarus is marching toward Smallville, ready to put the town under its heel. Absolute Superman deals heavily in class consciousness, solidarity, the threat of corporate power, and toxic hierarchies. As Brainiac tortures Cal, he breaks free for a moment and calls to the Brainiac slaves, imploring them to resist their cruel master. And it works! The Brainiacs retort their master, and in solidarity, accept the punishment together a la Spartacus. Individuality, demanding freedom, rebuking masters. This is the message here, and it perfectly fits Superman's character as a champion of freedom. Speaking of fights for freedom, the first 2 issues of my crowd-funded comic, Brer Rabbit in the Jazz Age, is available to purchase. Follow a trickster shaman in a battle against the Ku Klux Klan at the height of their tyranny. Visit the link in the description, and while you're down there, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more comics content. I am so impressed with how the Absolute Universe has adapted the classic Trinity, giving them some of their hardest challenges that force their core characteristics to shine even brighter. Now, we'll look at the other 3 books: Absolute Flash, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter. Wally West is struggling with the death of his mother, and a distant father buried in his work. That work happens to be shady super science for a lab run by a woman ominously named Thawne.
It was me, Barry.
One of these experiments engulfs Wally and scientist Barry Allen. But something is off. Sometimes Barry is dead, sometimes he's alive. Wally can see things happening all at once. Clearly, Wally has been touched by the Speed Force. But rather than becoming a superhero, he's hunted down by government agents, like the Rogues. The absolute version of Flash's classic foes turned into a broken troop of disgraced Special Forces officers. Amongst the angst, we start to see the different approach to the Flash the Absolute Universe brings. And that starts with Grodd. This time, not a menacing Congo conqueror, but this cute green monkey fella. Through telepathy, Wally and Grodd share their pains, hopes, and team up to help each other. Side note, considering Grodd is now a green monkey, this could be a nod to Wally's fellow Titan, Beast Boy? Maybe. Writer Jeff Lemire wrote on his Substack that he was going through an intense bout of anxiety and depression while developing Absolute Flash. He coped by funneling those feelings into Wally West. I made the terrifying manifestation of his powers a reflection of the chaos I was feeling. And, most importantly, I wrote a story about finding your way out of that anxiety. A superhero comic about finding some light, even in the most chaotic and terrifying times, and running towards it. Helping and healing seems to be the theme of Absolute Flash. Wally finds his way to an orphanage run by kindly Ralph Dibny. That's Elongated Man, in case you didn't know. At the same time, Wally is made to confront a lava monster that seems to be this universe's heat wave. But instead of fighting, Grodd encourages Wally to help the creature. And now, Wally is joining the Rogues on their run toward freedom. The Flash family has always been associated with hope, optimism, and family ties. This take on the Flash is driving us in that direction. Another kind of family in the DC universe is the Green Lantern Corps, which gets one of the most drastic overhauls of all. Absolute Green Lantern is a first encounter story similar to Arrival or A Space Odyssey, but on a massive scale of destruction. Abin Sur indeed makes contact with Hal Jordan. In fact, his lantern ship contacts an entire town full of familiars, names, and faces, closing them off in a dome and unleashing judgment on them. Hal's will is not rewarded with the heroic Green Ring. Instead, a black hand of great destruction. Sojourner Mulane takes up the lead role, and must solve the mystery of the Green Lantern. The Abin Sur and the call to be without fear. At the same time, the hyper-chauvinist Hector Hammond leads a corporation in competition with Lazarus to gain control of the Lantern. The Black Stars turn out to be an evil version of the Green Lantern Corps, complete with Kilowog and Mogo under their control. There's a lot going on in Absolute Green Lantern, and we still don't know all that much. Only recently did we get explanation of Avensur's goals, the purpose of the Lantern, etc. It builds as a mystery, but if I have one critique, it's that the pacing has been very As of right now, we are 7 issues in, and it feels like a lot less progress has been made here than in the other stories. The narrative jumping back and forth on the timeline of events doesn't help either. I like Al Ewing as a writer a lot, and I'm confident this is all building to something great. But it's taking a long time to get there. Honestly, this is probably the weakest of the Absolute line. Now, our final title is also the most surprising for being the best Absolute line and one of the best titles running, period. Absolute Martian Manhunter exists in the mind of Detective John Jones, of the city they inhabit, of me, and of you. Our favorite Martian is more of a psychic rider to Jones than an actual alien. Martian is simply the closest approximation of a word that could be used. The Martian brings the invisible to sight, giving color to the collective unconscious. Hate, fear, anxiety, and more are splayed out artistically on the page, turning thoughts and emotions into battles to be fought. These emotions are being manipulated by the enigmatic White Martian, who seems to revel in stoking chaos throughout the city. It's hard to just explain why Martian Manhunter is such a high-quality book. I can tell you about the poetic monologues of Jones's inner voice, the created ways ephemeral concepts are displayed on the page, the mood that radiates off of it, the beautiful colors. There's an issue about a heat wave striking the city, and I completely sympathized with the sweat and anger the heat brought to the people on the page. This series brings back the feeling of 80s Vertigo. I'd compare it to Morrison's Doom Patrol, or probably more closer, Milligan's Shade the Changing Man. It needs to be experienced. It is lightning in a bottle. Recently, the Absolute Evil special has released. Absolute Evil finds a union between the various supervillains, not quite as a Legion of Doom, but an Illuminati of business tyrants and government overlords. It opens with Absolute Green Arrow, training to invade Deathstroke Island, where child trafficking is going on. Yes, they turned Deathstroke into Jeffrey Epstein, which is both shocking and very fitting for that character, and Oliver's dead, killed by Hawkman. Turns out, back in 1951, Hawkman became Ratman, leaking the identities of superheroes to the House Un-American Activities Committee, a McCarthyist group dedicated to fighting communist infiltration during the Red Scare. And that seemed to include superheroes as well, seen as subversives in society, threats to the status quo. Wesley Dodds is shot dead, his science turned into lethal gas weapons for the military. Ted Grant accepts a bribe to retire, so on and so on. The Justice Society never comes to be. The Golden Age foundation of superheroes is gone. This is not unlike what happened with the New 52. I wonder if this might be a commentary on that. This all shows how the game has been rigged for decades. This corruption is nothing new. We're just seeing the latest form of it. Before, the excuse for tyrannical control was protecting America from subversives and communists. Now, it's about protecting profit, corporate power. And in fact, we learn the sheer particles of the universe are caked in omega energy, essentially the essence of Darkseid. This makes evil and injustice into the natural law of the world. And when injustice is nature, justice is evil. And so, these villains team up to form the Absolute Justice League. I am thoroughly enjoying each title and have high hopes for the future. However, I said the same thing about the New 52, and I also thought that first year was amazing. And, well, look how that went. But if the Absolute Universe tells us anything, it's the need for great hope even in the face of despair. If you like this video and want similar content, I have a video discussing the morality of rebellion in comics, featuring the Ultimates, which are taking a similar approach of presenting the superheroes as the villains of their world. Join the King Rex Discord for discussion, pick up a copy of Brother Rabbit, subscribe for more content, and as always, keep on reading.